Hi, I'm Michael Caju.
And I'm Adee Caju, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. This podcast is about health, wellness, and personal development.
Each episode is a short conversation between Adee and I on a single topic with actionable steps. We cover everything from food, mindset, fitness, and relationships.
We started WAG because of the way health and fitness changed our lives, so we hope to share a tool or two that helps you along your way. Hey, this is Adee Caju, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. We had some people apply to do a live coaching session with me on nutrition and any obstacles that they're encountering. So today's episode is going to be a recording of one of those coaching calls. Hope that you get some value of listening to this person's story and how we talk about what's going on for them and maybe relating it to yourself. If you love this podcast, we would really appreciate you taking the time to leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you love about it. Tell us what you're taking away from it. It is really the best way for us to get this podcast out there and to reach more people, and we would really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you, and let's get into this coaching call. Awesome. So my first question for you is, if you could wave a magic wand and this call would go exactly the way that you wanted it to, what would be the outcome at the end of it?
Like, what would be the main takeaway?
Yeah.
I think a nutritional plan, or ideas for a nutritional plan that would make sense to me. I feel like I've had I feel like I have a lot of data from all these different sources to work with. And right now I'm just kind of depending on the day and my mood, being like, oh, that's not going to work. Yeah, I'll do that for a while. And then there's not really a cohesive plan. And I think, like I said in my answer originally, I think that a lot of the nutritional advice that I've gotten over the past few years has been super helpful up to a point. And now that I'm getting more targeted, in some of my fitness goals, I'm realizing I need to target my nutritional stuff more for me, not just an average person my age, or because I've noticed there's certain generalized advice in nutrition that works really well for me, and then other things that just don't work, even if I'm very diligent. And I do have the ability to be diligent. I know that I'm not just oh yeah, I'm following the plan, but secretly eating brownies at midnight or something. I know how to stick to things. So when I do, and then it just doesn't work, then I think, okay. And I think intuitively sometimes I feel like I know what I might need, but it doesn't necessarily make sense logically to me. And so then I'm well, I don't know. I'm not going to try that. That seems weird. I don't know. So I think just coming out with a little better sense of based on what you hear of kind of what I've got going on, what's one concrete thing for me, not just for a general person, that I could take forward into a nutritional plan that would be a useful experiment. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a couple of notes because I'm going to revisit it after I collect as much
information
from you as possible.
Yeah.
So my next question, just to give context, I know you're a master's athlete. I'm assuming you meant in CrossFit is where you're doing master's competing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And where are you at with that? How long have you been doing that? What are your goals in masters?
I'm an amateur masters athlete. I'm not a games masters athlete, honestly. I've been doing CrossFit this is my 6th year, and I've been competing on masters teams, and then last year did my first masters individual competition last fall at the Dakota Games. And so I'm 40, how old am I? I'm 41. And so I've been just since my last individual competition, my next kind of longer goal is to go back to that same kind of larger comp individual. I've been planning, and I think it makes even more sense now given what's going on, for this year to kind of just be a building year, especially for skills, and compete team this fall if they do hold it, and then try to go back individual and just place myself a little bit better the following fall. So I guess that'd be 2021. They usually hold it in September. And there's a whole online qualifier and everything. Just there's lots of there's some steps to getting there. So that's where I'm at with with that. I think a lot of the general coaching I've gotten from fellow coaches at the gym and just information I've kind of gleaned is not master specific. And I don't necessarily think everything has to be, but I definitely know there's a difference between me and the 25-year-old girls in the gym. And that's fine. I feel like I'm just mostly going on feel right now in terms of like, what do I need differently nutritionally, recovery, just all those pieces. And I'd like to have more like meat or data behind it to help me like feel like my plan actually makes sense.
Right. Okay. I get
Yeah.
that. So that's a competitive division, the 40-year-olds. I think it's like 40 to 45, right?
Yeah, 40 to 44. Yeah, it's the ladies are hardcore.
Yeah, because you're in the.
I'm just looking to have fun in it and like be in it, like I'm not, my main coach, he's like, you're going to podium. And I'm like, I don't know, but like, it's fun. It's super fun. And I like the goal of being like getting to those competitions. So that's kind of where my mindset is on those. I'm not imagining myself like in the top 5 or anything, but yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it would be totally okay if you did as well. You're allowed. The universe is listening. You never know what can happen.
Right.
So what I'm hearing is most of your goals right now are focused towards performance more than weight loss, body composition, muscle gain. Like right now, it's just maximizing my ability to perform in the gym.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason the email originally for like potentially having this call interested me is that I've had over the past, if I think back to like over the past 2 years in terms of different cycles of competing and training, I've had some fluctuation in like weight and body composition, which is fine. And I know that there was like kind of a sweet spot in terms of just how I felt overall at a certain weight. And obviously I've built strength since then, which usually equates to a change in, weight, muscle mass. And my current weak spot is gymnastics. And so that's what I've been spending a lot of like skill and focus on for training. And that's obviously a section of CrossFit where, lightening up a little bit, leaning out a little bit, obviously is going to give you an advantage. But it's a delicate tipping point there between that and then, losing mass to make you just, make your clean go to hell. So I'm trying to figure out a realistic goal in terms of like body weight / body composition that'll let me kind of sit in both of those camps. And I know that's probably every athlete, right? Like that's not so unusual, but I've been trying to just get more, again, like kind of data to help me with that lately, between better tracking. There's a group of us at the gym that are working with a guy who's kind of following all of our Whoop data. And so we're using some of that. And then I actually, for the first time, did like a body composition scan, like an in-body thing this past year, just to get a better sense of, as imperfect as any of those things are, I wanted to just kind of see like, where am I at? Because I want to push towards goals, but I also want to have realistic goals. Mm-hmm. And I'm like a lot of different people, especially women, there's that internal fight with kind of like the number on the scale, even though that's far from the whole picture, but it's still kind of like, so totally. I'm trying to form some realistic goals around that makes sense.
If it makes you feel better, that battle is common across the 25-year-olds CrossFit Games individual athlete, across everyone, that battle of, I know I like knowing I intuitively feel good and I'm performing good in the gym, but the number is still like taking a little bit of your intuition away, where it's like, should my gymnastics feel harder because I'm heavier versus like your gymnastics actually feeling harder. Aside from the number on the scale.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple more questions before we dive a little deeper. I like the direction of this conversation already. It's exciting. This is, I love working with people who have performance-based goals, and you're kind of on the brink of the stage of where you're letting go of the eating to look a specific way and being more focused on what my body can do, and like still toggling a little bit back and forth, but definitely pushing more towards performance, which I think is really exciting. And it gives you a lot more space, because the mental energy that's dedicated towards worrying about the scale, and that kind of gives way to make more space for performance and what your body can do, which I think is a really exciting place to be. So I'm pumped with where you're at right now. My question for you is tell me a little bit about like, what do you do for work? What did you do before you started doing CrossFit? Like, it sounds like you love plans. You love, you're organized. You like data. You want to know that you're doing the right thing versus make sure it feels like a little bit of not wanting to waste any time doing something that's not going to be working. So you want to know that you're doing something that's right for you. And there's this like seeking for that. And you're also, it sounds like very disciplined, organized. And so tell me, like, were you an athlete before? What do you do for work? Like, where is that coming from?
I work as a midwife.
I knew that. It was in your
that's the one.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's I have my own practice. I'm a home birth midwife, and that is a piece of life that obviously is, I mean, I make my own schedule on the one hand, but then also the babies make the schedule. So in terms of like uncontrollable variables, that was an interesting way for like my professional life to turn, because it, takes me out of my type A, like, guess what? You don't get to decide when all this happens. So it's a super flexible job. Sometimes it's really busy. Sometimes it's really mellow. And obviously it can cause great like sleep disturbances and things like that, and disrupt the training schedule, here and there. But yeah, I've been doing that for about 10 years. So that's my work life. Before CrossFit, when I really like think about it, I've always liked to do physical things, but I would have never ever before CrossFit said I was an athlete ever. I didn't play any sports in school. I was very much like anti-jock or whatever in high school, college. In college, I got into like running, just for something to do, fitness. Did some distance running, did like a marathon and a half marathon, and kind of just, here and there, stuff like that. And really only did that for quite a few years before I got married and had kids, but never considered myself to be athletic. And really it was actually during my time working in midwifery, realizing that like I'm spending a lot of time, not all the time, but I'm spending a significant time sometimes in the car sitting. I'm also spending time at births in people's homes where I'm in like weird positions for long periods of time. I need to have the strength to pick a human adult up off the floor if need be. We're in people's homes for these births, so we're very much accommodating what they need. We're like bending over backwards on the floor to catch babies. And I had a lot of back problems, I think partly from just the driving and from just running all those years and just being weak. So one of my friends said, "Oh, you should come to CrossFit with me." And I was like, "I don't like barbells. I'm not going to do that." And she said, "Oh, no, I think you'll like it." And so I just kind of, to like shut her up, I decided to go, and I got obsessed like within about 2 weeks.
You got bit by the bug.
Yeah. And I, for the first time ever since probably being about 15, have no back problems anymore. And that was really one of the biggest kind of non-performance takeaways, is that I just don't have pain. And so I realized it was really making me stronger for every aspect of my life. So, now it's like a huge part of my life now. And ended up getting my level 1 a couple years in and coaching some at the gym. And so now that's kind of my little side job, along with midwifery being my other job, my main job.
So
and then
cool.
Obviously my house, kids, I think. Yeah.
And then you start getting into, you got bit by the bug, you love CrossFit, you now are like, I want to get better at it. I see myself kind of like an athlete. I'm going to take on that title. I'm going to start competing. And you realize that in order to improve your performance in the gym, you also have to be fueled appropriately. And you try a bunch of things. And it seems like you haven't found, you try a bunch of things that seem to be general for most people, but you're at this place now where you're trying to get more specific and you want to know what's going to work for you and make you feel your best. So what I mean, what is, and you've tried a bunch of things, and we don't have to go over all of the things that you've tried. And it sounds a little bit like there's this piece, and you can totally be like, you're wrong. But this is just like what I'm feeling right now, is that there's a little bit of a lack of trust in your own intuition of what feels right for you versus what somebody else says you should be doing or should be working, or maybe you see something somebody is working for somebody else and it doesn't feel like it's working for you. And there's this lack of trust that I know what's best for myself versus I need someone to tell me what's right or what's wrong for me.
No, I think that's probably pretty accurate. And I think a lot of the early advice I sought out was probably about 8 to 10 months into CrossFit when I started thinking about more kind of targeted nutrition stuff. And I think a lot of the people I talked to, including one of the nutrition coaches at the gym and everything, a lot of those people work primarily, like 99%, with people who want to lose weight. And so their focus in terms of their nutrition programs that they're providing to people is really on like deficit, weight loss. And that's of course been a side effect of kind of just the change in my activity over the years. Not massive. Like I didn't start out looking like a totally different person or something, but certainly body composition more than weight change, I'd say. I mean, it's kind of, it's had its little ebbs and flows. But yeah, so I think a lot of the advice I sought out was kind of from the people who were focusing on weight loss. And that was like the old way of thinking, like the non-athletic, just like American female, I need to be skinnier kind of life. And I would tell them things like, yeah, but when you tell me that I should eat like X amount of carbs every day, like I feel like I want to fall down and I have no energy in the gym. And I'm like, well, but if you're, if you want to do X, Y, Z, you really should cut your calories back this much more. And I was always like, really? Because I feel like I'm not going to be able to get out of bed in the morning. So yeah, I think it's accurate what you say. Seeing a lot of things that other people are doing and feeling like maybe that's a strategy. I don't know. Like nothing has felt like it's been like the right fit.
And so I want to dig a little bit more into this like, because it sounds like you have ideas of what might work for you, and you've collected a lot of this information and you've tried a lot of different things, and you kind of know what's not working for you. And so it feels a little bit like the lack of trust in your own self, or maybe thinking like, I don't know enough, or I'm not an expert in this. But any amazing coach is going to be like, if I'm working with Cole Sager and he wants to change something about his nutrition, and he comes to me and he says, hey, look, this is not feeling great to me. And sometimes he literally makes some suggestions sometimes that I'm thinking in my head, no way this is going to work. This is just some craziness. He one time he suggested like 4 different sets of, it was just like, he's crazy sometimes, but he's the expert in himself. And I know enough to have worked with so many different people of so many different experiences and a lot of high performance athletes that I can tell him what I've seen from my experience, but still give him the freedom and the flexibility to at least commit to what he feels like might work for him. And he might fall flat on his face, and that's totally okay too. And we might game like an appropriate time to try something new versus 2 weeks before the games is probably not the best time to try something new. So I want to, where do you think is the hang up in your ability to trust yourself? Because you've tried a bunch of things, you know a lot, you're the expert in yourself. What's stopping you from creating your own plan?
I think, because I track everything pretty closely in terms of like macros on a daily basis. And it's all kind of based on suggestions in terms of the overall balance of it, or the overall kind of caloric load of it, of suggestions that have been given to me from other sources. And it feels like my body's like kind of just hanging on at that level. And what I've noticed in the past is when I intentionally or even unintentionally increase my intake, especially of carbs, everything goes better. But then if I tell myself like, oh, you should just do that all the time, then I'm like, oh no, that's, you're going to balloon. That's a bad idea. Like you're going to,
Have you ever tried it?
Well, I haven't tried it for like a controlled length of time. That's the thing. Cause I'm always like,
and you're afraid that you're just going to like wake up and you're going to be this balloon.
Like 300 pounds.
So I'm trying to
I know that's not
true. Well, we all have these habits of we whenever we're going to go change something, and I'm sure you notice this in midwifery too, where moms I'm pregnant right now, and I'm thinking about, I'm trying to solve all of these problems I actually don't have. Yeah. And so I'll spin out about, we're having a home birth, and I'm like, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And maybe we shouldn't make that. Maybe it should be in this room, and maybe it should be in that room, and like and all these things. And these are I'm making up problems that I don't actually have. But you have the skills and the confidence and the ability to be able to solve the problem if it was to even occur.
Right.
But it might not go that way.
Right.
So you're just like so afraid that it sounds like you know what you want to do. And you're just afraid to
but I also just feel like, I mean, there have been these little moments in the past where I feel like if I do that consistently, I do know that I just feel better, like energy wise, but it runs so counter to what everyone kind of tells me I should do that I think that's it. I just feel like, well, that can't be right then, you're exactly right. If this was one of my clients saying it to me, I'd be like, why don't you listen to yourself?
If you need permission to try it, here I am. I am here. This call is me giving you permission to try. Because the worst case scenario is you stop feeling great, and you've gained a couple pounds, and you don't feel worse in the gym, and then you revert back to trying to going back to something or trying something new. But it's like staying in this place that isn't working and not at least moving in a direction means that you end up you're just in the same place. Even if you choose the wrong direction, you still end up somewhere else.
Right. And then
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Here's permission. I'm giving you permission. You're allowed. And this ominous everyone who says do things one way, I could find an everyone that says to do things 800 different ways.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it does just speak to kind of like the lack of perspective you have on yourself sometimes. Like I said, like if this was my client asking me something about pregnancy, I would be saying the same thing to them that you are to me. But it's so hard to do that for yourself.
So hard because you are much more emotionally attached to your own progress and results than somebody else could ever be. So I think that, and one of the things that you wrote in your questions that you submitted was not knowing how to make a change and when to tweak. And I would love to give you just like a little bit of a framework that you can use to at least have some type of structure for yourself. So I'm not just like giving you permission to eat as many carbs as you want to eat and not monitoring any change. So you're already doing the data collection, which is great. You're already monitoring how you're feeling in the gym because it's something that you care about a lot and you're paying attention to it. Yeah. You're even doing body composition scans and all sorts of things. So you've got that going on. You're already disciplined. So I'm not worried that you're going to get permission to eat extra carbs and then you're going to go and eat brownies like you were talking about earlier. So that's like not my concern. I would, in general, choose like a 14-day span and make a 10 to 15% change. So change something 10 to 15% up or down, or like move things 10 to 15% of your total calories or macros or whatever you're tracking, like from fat to carbs or carbs to fat or up
Okay.
calories 10 to 15%,
Yeah.
or reduce calories 10 to 15%.
Sure.
And
Sure.
then monitor for 14 days
Okay.
how you're feeling. The only caveat to that I would make is if 5 days in you are feeling absolutely terrible, like this, there's no way that this is working, then it's not, you know sooner. But if you're like, I'm not sure, I don't know, I still need more time to collect more information. If you have 14 days worth of information, you'll be able to see at least some level of a trend. And then you can make another 10 to 15% change, or don't change anything at all.
Right.
And then
that makes sense.
The next time to make a tweak or a change is if you're either not seeing, you've plateaued for a significant period of time, which I think some people think a plateau for a significant, like a week, is a significant period of time. Especially for a woman, it's just not. Like,
no,
it's just not. I think like a month even is like probably on the low end of a significant period of time. But if you reference to your training, anytime you're trying to make progress in really any skill, there's like progress and then plateau for a really long time. And then all of a sudden there's this like huge burst of progress and then plateau. And in nutrition, it's kind of the same thing a lot of times. So it's okay to hang out in a plateau. I think the biggest lesson from this whole call for you is that you have more understanding of yourself than I think you know. And I don't think you need somebody else to tell you to do something. Like, they're not going to be able to tell you what's right or what's wrong for you unless you're working with someone very one-on-one that's monitoring all of your stuff and is actively taking your feedback into consideration when they're making suggestions for you. If you're not doing that, then you probably are the best person to create a plan for yourself. And it sounds like you might actually like it. And you're on this brink of, I have all the data, I'm disciplined, I'm collecting it all, I actually know what kind of feels right for me, but I need to give myself permission to actually do it and not listen to these other people who might be saying to do something different.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think what you said about just the longer period of time for assessing that progress, because you're right, I think especially for women, like the little ups and downs aren't really very representative, unless you give it a longer period of time, certainly across a week or 2 weeks or wherever you are in a particular month. There's a lot of little ups and downs that aren't necessarily indicative of what's really going on.
And I mean, I can go over like 8 other things you could test and tweak and different options for you, but I would tell you that you should just stick to one or two changes at a time and see, because too many changes, you just don't know what's causing what. So an example would be, if you feel like you feel so much better increasing your carbs, increase your carbs, do it and keep that for 2 weeks. I would be shocked if you all of a sudden turned into a huge balloon. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
You could call me back. And be like, I am now this big balloon. Look what you've done.
Yeah, I'll call you if that happens.
So that I think you can try. Some other things that you might want to like read about or consider would be timing your carbohydrates around your training. And that's the same thing, like sticking to something and seeing what works. Getting even grittier of like what type of food that you're eating, like something that might certain types of food to eat before training and after training and how that makes you feel. Some things might sit heavier in your stomach. Some things might feel really great. It is so different across the board for different people. So timing, and then I'm only going to say one other thing so that you don't take all this and you're like, I'm going to do it all right now because I need to do it all right now. For some people, this doesn't work for all people. Having 1 or 2 days a week where maybe you keep everything the same and then 1 or 2 days a week you eat in excess of carbohydrates. So you eat just a lot extra. So 50 to 150 grams extra on that particular day. And doing that on a day that you train and on a day that preferably you also train the next day. would be like the
Okay.
most ideal. There are
Sure.
some people that works like exceptionally well. Like Cara Saunders is a great example of someone who thrives on having like she can feel herself winding down after a couple of days of training, and then that is like a huge boost that she needs to keep herself going.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So those are like a couple things that you can try, but I would just start for you with increasing your carbs because you already know that makes you feel great.
Yeah.
And I only said the like picking 1 or 2 days because it sounds like you have been doing that. You're like, oh, I have 1 or 2 days where I increase my carbs and I feel great.
Right. Yeah, it's just kind of been more randomized or reactionary, I should say, like to feeling that kind of drag come on. But I think what you said about the 10 to 15% makes a lot of sense because if I have had little periods of time where I've just incrementally just kept it a little bit higher, I think that's where I start to feel like, okay, the energy's back, I can push and not feel like my 15-year-old's about to beat me in the burpees like she almost did this morning.
No way. Oh my gosh.
I had to chase her down. Yeah.
I can't wait till I'm competing with a 15-year-old and working out. Well, I can wait, but
yeah. Oh, it's been really fun. It's been a cool thing for her to have. It's been really neat as a parent to have something. Well, for both my kids, but it's my daughter who's really more into CrossFit, so that she's coming like into her teenage years with this perception that like strength and fueling yourself is something to think about rather than like being in a smaller jean size or whatever. I like the positive aspects of body composition and strength and eating and being strong that she's getting, I think, at a lot younger age than I ever did. So
yeah. How cool.
Yeah.
15-year-old girl
seeing
her mom kick butt in the gym and eating for performance and so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
Very inspiring.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, I don't want to give you any more, but I would love to answer any lingering questions that you have. Any questions that you have for me, I'm totally available. But I think for sure what the biggest lock that I've noticed in this from our 36-minute conversation that we've had so far. So so of course I'm not like the expert on you right now.
Right.
But just trusting yourself and believing that it's okay that other people actually are telling you to do something different than what you believe is right for you. And you can really I like the metaphor of try on any piece of advice kind of like a sweater at the store. And you go to the store, you try on the sweater, you look in the mirror, and you're like, oh, this, like, it's kind of itchy, or, like, I don't really like it, but I at least tried it on, and then I can just put it back. And you don't even have to tell them. Don't even, I would suggest don't tell them.
Right.
Because their advice does work for someone. It just might not work for you. So, it sounds, and I'm going to check up on you. I follow up with everyone I do a call with in 4 weeks. I'm going to check up on you. And I'm going to ask you what your plan is and how it's been going. So you do have a level of accountability from me.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Do you think, the only other question I kind of thought of in the moment was, would you say, if you had to suggest something based on our conversation, that there should be much of a difference in kind of intake on recovery days / rest days or not? In terms, like a grand difference in intake, or should it be, would that just be kind of another variable to maybe not change right now, to just stick with kind of the plan and not try and do anything really different on those days nutritionally?
Yeah, so changing up your nutrition on training days versus rest days is another thing to test. So it's a lot like increasing your carbohydrates on 1 or 2 days, or timing your carbs around your workouts, or changing the types of foods you're eating. It's another variable that you can test to see if it impacts or doesn't impact you. In general, from the amount of people that we've worked with, I find that different macros on training days, or different calories or whatever on training days versus rest days is not a common thing that works for many people. It does work for some people. I haven't seen it be super common across the board. I have found that it's been generally better for people to have some level of consistency throughout the week. And that's what I've noticed, but there is definitely exceptions to that rule. And there's some people that just do much better having different levels. But I at the start, when you're trying to learn yourself, and for you right now, I know you do trust yourself, but you're trying to build this confidence in your own intuition. And when you're trying to build the confidence in your own intuition, it's a lot like building your integrity and trying to stick to things like the gym or nutrition. So starting as low as possible so that you don't get overwhelmed too quickly where you start doubting your decisions. So making very few decisions at the beginning, and then you can be like, oh, I actually can feel the change, and I'm not questioning where the change is coming from. And then you can start getting a little bit more complex as you go on. But I would suggest right now, just keep things the same and up your carbs a little bit and see how that makes you feel. And then decide from the other variables that you could test in the future.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes just sense from a habits point of view too, because I kind of want to just wake up and eat the same breakfast most days. So
it's just a little bit easier. It's generally a little bit easier. And then it would just stink. I think the reason why I've seen it not be as successful, especially with performance athletes, is that your recovery days or your rest days are so vital to being ready for the next day of training that if I've found that often an athlete won't feel like they have enough for the next day. And what you eat on your rest and your recovery day is also preparing you for the next day of training. So I've just, especially in performance, but also for if anyone's listening and they are considering doing this for weight loss, just for level of habits like you're talking about, just toggling back and forth, it can change the food options that you have available to you. So you might use it as like, oh, I get to eat extra today, and it might feel like a luxury, or this is my day to eat extra, which I don't think is your case. But in performance, it's the recovery and the rest day is really important. And unless you're seeing like huge, like I'm so full, I can't possibly finish my food on rest recovery day, or seeing some crazy weight fluctuations that we could look deeper into, but you just want to build confidence in your ability to trust your own intuition right now.
Okay, that makes sense.
Cool. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. I feel like I have a good little like concrete, like I said, plan to just make this one little tweak and stick to it and watch how it goes. With permission.
Yes, I'm here giving you permission. You can do it. Sometimes that's all you need is permission.
Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for getting
on
this
call
with me today.
Thanks for the opportunity. This has been great.
And I'm going to reach out in 4 weeks and keep you accountable. I think this is going to be super helpful to anybody who listens, and I know that a lot of people can totally relate to the same thing of everything that we talked about here. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you. This has been great.
Thanks for joining us. Stay in touch by signing up for our newsletter at workingagainstgravity.com or on Instagram at workingagainstgravity.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and refer a friend. We'll be back next week with another episode. Talk to you then.